You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, a conversation about being hired in hijab as a professor of accounting in the University of Regina, while teachers in Quebec are being thrown out of their jobs for wearing hijab. But first, some news headlines. Ukrainian Muslims at risk of becoming refugees again. Ontario opens $25 million security grant for religious and cultural institutions. Winnipeg Muslims gather for first Bazaar since pandemic. 3 former police officers convicted in George Floyd trial. And now the details. Islam in Ukraine is the second largest religion after Christianity, although still a small minority. Most Muslims in Ukraine are refugees from different parts of the former Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. That includes Tatars, Chechens, and Dagestanis, who have suffered long at the hands of Russians. There are also Meskhetian Turks. They were deported by Soviet leader Joseph Stalin from their ancestral lands in Georgia. There are approximately 150 mosques in Ukraine. 25% of Crimea's population is Muslim, which was occupied by Russia in 2014. Now, most Muslims are concentrated in the Donbas region, which came under Russian control. The government of Ontario is investing $25 million to support anti-hate security measures for faith-based and cultural organizations. The money is intended to strengthen safety and security measures. Successful applications will get a percentage of the funding if they own an indoor facility for at least a month and host regular gatherings of religious, spiritual, or cultural significance. The application is due on March 3rd. The Manitoba Islamic Association held their first community winter bazaar Saturday, after over 2 years. The community of Winnipeg Muslims gathered in Waverley Grand Mosque, showcasing more than 24 businesses. Jewelry, Qurans, food, and clothes were among the many items sold. Manitoba Islamic Association Director Raed Hamdan says that it was great to see an event that could gather a large crowd and support local businesses since the pandemic. The 3 former police officers who responded at the scene of George Floyd's death were convicted Thursday for violating his civil rights. 2 of them, Tu Tao and J. Alexander King, were convicted for failing to intervene as Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes. Acting U.S. Minnesota Attorney Charles Kovatz says that the case stands as a reminder of the moral responsibility for officers to intervene. The convicted showed no emotion as their verdict was delivered. Brandon Williams, Floyd's nephew, says that he hopes these convictions will spark a change in laws that protect civilians in these situations. Floyd's brother, Philanese Floyd, told local media sources that there could never be justice, since his brother could not be brought back. And that's it for the news. In Quebec recently, a teacher was reassigned because she was wearing hijab. Bill 21 prohibits people in positions of authority, including teachers, from wearing a headscarf. And yet, on the other end of the country, we have at the University of Regina, Dr. Sanobar Siddiqui, who was recently hired in the accounting department. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, I just mentioned the Quebec situation, and then over there in Regina, something else is happening. Were you surprised that you were hired in the accounting department?
I believe that I was hired because of my skill sets and the qualification that I bring to the university. Of course, when I had appeared for the interview, I was in my hijab constantly throughout the 2-day process, the interviewing process. So they were very well aware that I am a hijabi Muslim woman in academia. I suspect, although I'm pretty sure that they hired me because of my qualifications. And
How long ago was this?
oh, this is exactly so I had interviewed in March of 2020, January 2020, I'm sorry. And I had signed the contract within a few months, and I was given time to complete an accounting designation, which I completed, and I joined in 2021.
So it's
January
still
1st,
very
20.
recent. I mean, it's
Yes.
very recent in spite of all what's going on in Quebec, something completely different happening in Regina.
Although there is a huge scope and there is a huge literature and research happening within post-secondary education, within the accounting departments, of the problem of having a diverse faculty. We have Canada is an immigrant country. We have a huge influx of international students within our post-secondary sector across the board, everywhere from Ontario to Saskatchewan to across the board. So there is a need for representations within the faculty to have people so that the students can identify with them. So, and there is research on this. There are numbers that all post-secondary institutes have to fill in. They have data sets every year where they say about the number of women, people of color, disabled, and of course indigenous. So I fall two of those. So I'm a woman and a person of color, and this is designated by law by the federal government. So I tick those boxes. So yes, so perhaps that might have played, although I was never told that.
But then you mentioned a special skill set. I don't think I've ever met a Muslim woman in hijab accounting professor. It just seems like a very unique trajectory. How did you end up there?
I like maths. I enjoy accounting. I've studied accounting all my life, and then I always taught accounting all my life. And I think the other reason, and there is a huge, and there is again literature on the fact that there are very few accounting professors in academia in North America. So that is a well established fact. So trying to rope in people to come and teach accounting simply because of the designation, the CPA, and then having a research skill set. There are two different skill sets to bring into academia. I balanced that by completing my CMA, my Certified Management Accountant designation, and I did my EdD. I love to teach accounting. So I did actually research on how do you teach accounting through research-informed, evidence-based instructional strategies, and so that's what I bring to the university.
And
To
what
the
was your
accounting
PhD?
department.
What was your PhD topic on?
So I actually did, I looked at the status of scholarship of teaching and learning in the accounting discipline. This is pretty novel because accounting educators are, and there is again data that the number of students studying accounting within post-secondary institutes across Canada is reducing year by year, and I tie that back in because it's a mathematical subject where there's lots of numbers involved. Students are not they do not want to pursue this avenue, so those numbers are going down. We then actually need to have research done within our classes of how do you teach accounting in such a way that we are actually having an influx, or we are generating interest amongst our students. And that's where I come in, because I'm an accounting educator who's actually doing research within our accounting classes of how do you teach well through research-informed, evidence-based instructional strategies that actually deepens the understanding of our accounting students.
I
And
can
my whole
understand why students might be leery of that, because I mean, me and numbers aren't great friends, so I'm not surprised to hear you say something like that. Let's switch gears a little. A lot of Muslims know the experience of growing up being the only Muslim in the class or the only Muslim at school. Are you the only Muslim woman in hijab in the accounting department at the University of Regina?
No, actually, there is one more. So there are two of us. Uh, uh, um, and she also recently joined with me. And although when you said that being an only Muslim woman, this has been true throughout. While I did my doctoral studies from University of Calgary, even at that point of time, I was the only Muslim woman in my cohort. That led to a lot of fiery discussions with my cohort members, because having a Muslim woman wearing hijab constantly throughout that process was difficult for a few of them. So I was representing Islam, to all of them. So in many contexts, I have been the only Muslim women, being a practicing Muslim and being in this kind of a space when I taught. So there are different kinds of different kind. You become an only person. I have taught at University of Toronto. I was the only Muslim woman over there in the accounting department. So yes, it's kind of a first. Although we have a few more coming up when we meet at the Canadian Academic Accounting Association, and we are growing in numbers very slightly, but then there is some representation. I know one more, so there are two of us that I see.
So something special is happening in the University of Regina. I was the only Muslim woman in headscarf in my department for many years. So I understand. I think actually I'm still the only Muslim woman in headscarf in my department. It can be a very lonely experience. Does it ever make you want to take off the scarf and just sort of not have to deal with that sense of being alone?
No, never. I am very true to my faith. And this has been a conversation time and again where it has been flung on me that you're wearing your hijab because of your husband or your father, and it's rather ridiculous. We are grown-up women with our own minds, and I want to wear a hijab because of my relationship with my creator. So, and these are the notions that I debunked when I was at my doctoral studies. We had lengthy conversation constantly where I would say attacked for my faith, everything from jihad, ISIS, we will blow up campus was discussed. I would, at that point of time, a few years ago when I had started, I was not driving. I have been born and brought up in Saudi Arabia, so I never learned how to drive. And at that point, I was very new to Canada. I hadn't learned how to drive, so that in itself was a key, differentiation between me and the rest, was because I was not driving, and I tried to explain to them that I'm chauffeured around. My husband and my father would always take me wherever I wanted. I've never been chained or shackled to any place. I can do whatever I want to do.
So those are stories of what we call microaggressions that Muslims face all the time, everywhere. How did you cope? How have you got through it?
I actually started to read a lot and started to follow a lot of other thinkers and well-known people who have dealt with this issue. And I have actually, I do this on a regular basis where I follow Dr. Yasir Khadi, and how do you balance being a practicing hijabi Muslim in North American context, and how do we balance that out? I try to learn and imbibe, and then I now understand. Even though I might be a very regular Muslim, I've always been a very regular Muslim all my life, but because of my position now in academia, I understand that I am representing Islam, and I bring that face, and where I get these questions, and I welcome them, because this allows me to then represent Islam, that there is nothing against education. We want our daughters and girls to study. My father was a huge proponent of that, and I am here because of my father and then my husband.
And now we have to leave it there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're out of time. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. This was a very interesting conversation. Thank you.
You've been watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe and God bless.